Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate S&S. So I just want to take a moment to kind of touch base with everybody and explain what in my opinion, the number one prep is that we should be focusing on, other than just getting our canned foods and things like that ready, because that doesn't take but an hour or two out of the week to get a lot of that stuff. Go to the store, get it, package it up, get it stored where we're going to put it. What can we be doing in the meantime? So instead of watching a bunch of TV and stuff, what I do is I am constantly researching, for future projects and for current projects. So, for example, one of the big projects that I have going right now is the chickens, getting that off the ground. This is pretty similar to the quail in most retrospects. There's a few extra needs that they need. But as far as their health, a lot of the same diseases and stuff that affect quail also affect chickens, and a lot of the same treatments exist. If you don't know what to look for in the health of your bird, I recommend that you study that. You can rent books at the library. You can find videos online. I mean, there's a lot of in-depth videos that veterinarians do, and they give you, the things that you can go buy at Tractor Supply, Rural King, different places like that. Feed stores usually have the medicines you need, but they also teach you a lot of natural remedies, plants that you can grow in your own garden and give to your birds that's going to keep them healthy or treat any kind of disease that may develop as well. We're not talking about massive H5N1 type diseases. We're talking about things that typically kill the bird that are easily preventable if you just feed them properly. So I would recommend researching as much as you can on any project that you have going, and do not stop researching. If you notice anything that seems awkward on your bird, then you need to look it up. Is this normal? Does this mean that there's something going on? Do I need to do something proactive to prevent some kind of disease or sickness in my flocks? And you're going to be able to find that information. Now think about this: if you're getting your chickens going and you're not researching that, and then everything goes down, there's no longer a library, the internet's down and stuff like that, you're not going to know what to do in that situation. The same thing goes for your own health care. There's a lot of natural remedies that we can take to treat infections and stuff as well. So honey is actually, if you have, say, a bad cut, you can actually use honey as a dressing, and it has a lot of natural antibiotics that's going to keep that from getting infected. A lot of people don't realize that. That was one of the big reasons why I decided to do honey as well. Not only is it sweet for a snack, it works great to treat birds. If you have birds that are stressed out, especially chicks, they're getting pasty butt. By the way, checked out that chick video where I did the update. I left it in there. I was hoping somebody would catch it before I cleaned them. No one even mentioned it. That chick has pasty butt, which is where the poop has collected just below the vent. Now, I clean that daily. He's the only one that's got it left. Wasn't too bad, so I imagine this is probably going to be the end of it. But you have to watch that, because if you leave that untreated, that manure, that poop, is going to back up into their vent. It's going to harden, and your bird will die. So be researching. If you're going to keep chicks, don't just think, okay, well, I'm going to get some chicks, I'm going to keep them in my house for a little while. You have to have brooding heaters, some kind of a lamp, some way to keep that temperature around 100 degrees. It seems hot, but for those chicks that can't regulate their body temperature, they need it at 100 degrees. If you're keeping them in a shed, you have to monitor them throughout the day and adjust the heat, because it gets warm in a shed, especially come summertime. You don't want them to get too hot. That's just as bad as being too cold. So these are some things that you need to learn. You need to learn when to start cutting the heat back to make their bodies adjust. So these are all a lot of information you can find online. And I highly recommend, if you haven't watched through some of these videos and things, I've covered a lot of that stuff in the source material. So definitely check those out. If you're doing a garden, guys, I used to do a blog on an old Facebook account for gardening, and it's been years back, and that I've since deleted that thing years and years ago. But I would get random pictures in, people like, can you tell me what's wrong with my garden, and send a picture. Well, no, I can't tell you what's wrong with your garden, because one, I don't know what the pH of your soil is. I don't know what kind of fertilizers you've been using on it. You're showing me that this thing has yellowing around the leaves. Do I know if that's nitrogen burn, or do I know if that's sunburn? I have no idea. I don't know what kind of sun you're getting on it. If you have a tomato plant that's rated for full sun, the chances are it's not sun related, but it could be calcium related. So that's something you need to think about. If you're having calcium deficiency, you're going to see yellowing of the leaves. It always starts at the edge and moves into the full leaves, and then you start losing branches on your tomato plants. but it could also look like nitrogen burn from too much nitrogen, which is going to turn the leaf brown. They're going to fall off and again kill the plant. It's burning the roots up underneath. So research before you plant your gardens. Don't just go out, till some dirt, throw some seeds in the ground, and then say, okay, well, I got some plants growing. Will you get a crop? You'll get something, I'm sure. But if you're going to put the time and effort into weeding your gardens, and understand you're not going to keep all the little low level grass and clovers and things from popping up, it's impossible. Unless you're using some kind of poison or weed killer or something, then you're going to be affecting your crops. And use that stuff. If it's growing, just let some of that stuff grow. You want to remove the large weeds that are going to choke and fight for the nutrients that is in the ground. Some of that low-lying stuff, once your plants get a certain size, the shade's going to kill all that out anyway. So don't let it bother you too much. But you want to make sure that your plants are in the type of soil they need. Some plants require a sandier type soil. Some of them require more of a loam soil. If you don't know what those terms mean, loam has a bit of a clay content. It's not a hard clay. It's a little better as far as the drainage of some dirts, but not all dirts. Sand, on the other hand, has a tendency to hold a lot of moisture near the top, and the moisture that does go down, because there's really just nothing to keep the sun from making the moisture out of the ground. It releases the moisture real quick. That's why it's so humid out here and in the summertime in Florida. I mean, it just zaps the moisture out of the ground. So maybe you need to look at adding some mulch and stuff like that to your rows, and that's going to help with some of those weeds as well and help you fight that stuff back, is adding mulch. So that's one of my plans here probably this weekend, is to go out and get some mulch and to go ahead and mulch a lot of my rows that are out there to help fight with some of those weeds. As far as the weeds that are up in the, in between the rows, that's real quick to knock that out with a hoe, as long as you maintain it. Now, if you decide, well, I don't feel like it today, I don't feel like it today, and I don't feel like it today, and you come back in 2 weeks, you're going to have a mess. I mean, you really are. And the roots and stuff are going to be fighting your plants for the nutrients that's in the ground, and you're going to hurt your harvest. Now, you can plant a garden and not give it anything, and you're going to get something. But remember, this is about getting the most out of the work that you're doing. So that's why it's important to understand not just soil pH, but the NPK values of what fertilizers that you're using is, how to adjust those naturally if you're not going to use a store-bought fertilizer. What plants create more nitrogen? What plants create less nitrogen, but they have more potassium and calcium? And you put those in your compost bins, and you're going to be able to look at your plant, determine what it needs, and you're going to be able to compost it accordingly. Now, I can tell you chicken manure is going to work on just about everything, but the problem with chicken manure is if you have leafy vegetables, spinach, lettuce, turnip greens, things like that, you don't want to be using chicken manure anywhere near it. You can use it on the outside of the row, but the problem is you're going to get, especially if you're using raw chicken manure, you're going to get that poo to splash up on the plant, and it is a natural contaminant for E. coli and salmonella. If you've ever seen the recalls on a lot of the vegetables, that's why. It's because they've used chicken manure on it. It wasn't properly composted, and that's why it's got salmonella, and they have the recalls, because they're just throwing the stuff out there. They don't have enough of the manure actually properly composted. Now, if you have properly composted your manure, you shouldn't have those in there as well. But there are some plants, like say spinach, for instance, that likes that higher nitrogen. So what do you do in that case? Well, what you do is you want to take and cut a trench next to your row, not on top of it, down at the bottom of it, cut a trench in. Put some of your manure in there, then cover it with dirt. That way it doesn't splash up onto your plants. And that's a good way to get those nutrients in the ground, but not contaminate your plant. So those are some nice little tips for you. But whatever your project is, whatever your sustainability goal is, research it through and through, because if it comes to a grid down situation, you're not going to have the access of a vet for your animals. You're not going to have an access to figure out what's wrong with your gardens. You're not going to be able to just run to the store and buy fertilizer. In fact, if you go now, it's crazy expensive. Just regular potting soil that has some fertilizers in it has went from bags that were once costing $1.97 to costing $5 and $6. That's for off-brand soil. that is not for your higher end organic soils as well. So chances are it's got some kind of chemical in there that they're using. So you need to really pay attention to what's happening in the world today, and understand I'm not trying to get on anybody on this channel. I'm here to help any way that I can. I definitely don't know it all. There's a lot of things that I learned, but when I learn something new, I feel the urge to share it, because that's how we each learn, is sharing information with one another. So I hope that this has been a helpful video, and everyone have a blessed week. It's been a nice week so far. A little bit of scared with that fire stuff. Been posting up some updates in the community posts for those who are interested in that, just to keep everybody up to date. My family is safe. I don't have any loved ones that are in the direct path of those fires or anything, but there are families that are up in those areas, so be praying for those people as well. And just have a blessed week, guys.